Are you ready to thrive? As a trauma therapist, author, yoga instructor, and healed human, I personally and professionally know what it means to live stuck in survival mode. I've learned a few things in my healing journey and my career that can help you transform into your best self. Join me, Rebecca Case, as I use neuroscience, psychology, spirituality, and personal experience to help you find the tools and techniques to thrive. Hello, and welcome back to Thrive the Podcast. Today, I'm talking about the Thrive 5. The Thrive 5 is a framework that I use to create a lifestyle of habits that collectively allow me to thrive and live my best self. Thriving requires action. It is the outcome of the culmination of habits, behaviors, actions that you regularly take and engage in your life that ultimately allow you to thrive. Thriving is not a passive process. You don't thrive by just staying on the couch all day or keeping yourself comfortable and refraining from trying new things, refraining from making yourself uncomfortable sometimes, having hard conversations, going to the gym when you don't want to go to the gym, eating the health food when you really just want to eat a whole other thing of ice cream. Thriving requires you to take active steps in your life. And so when we start to think about, well, what steps are those and what do they involve? What might they look like? This is where the Thrive 5 comes in. You can think of the Thrive 5 as kind of like an outline for a recipe. So let's say, for example, you decide you want to bake a boxed cake. You just go get the boxed cake, the box of icing from the store. You look at the back of the recipe box. It says add some eggs and maybe some water. You mix it together and ta-da, there's a cake. But let's say you want to make a really fancy, elegant cake, something really special for a special occasion. You're still going to need to follow a recipe card, but you're going to need different ingredients. So in this metaphor, eating the boxed cake is kind of like just taking the easy way in life, not putting a whole lot of effort into your lifestyle and creating a life that allows you to thrive. And then when you create something a little bit more complex, you need more ingredients, you need to follow a different strategy, you need to just kind of change up how you do the whole thing. And this is not to talk down on boxed cakes. I love boxed cakes. Actually, when I really need some self-care, when I'm really feeling burnt out, I have a habit of making myself a chocolate boxed cake. I call it self-care cake. That will probably be an episode at another time. But regardless, you get the gist of if you want a certain outcome, you have to find the ingredients in the recipe that's going to help get you there. So the Thrive 5 is kind of exactly that. The Thrive 5 consists of physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and relational. We can think of these as domains in your life that you regularly interact in. And depending on how you interact with those domains and the habits and behaviors and actions that you regularly engage in with those domains is going to have a direct correlation to whether or not you can say that you're thriving or if you're surviving in your life. So for example, if you are not taking care of your physical health, if you're not paying attention to what kind of food you're eating, if you're not staying hydrated, if you're not taking care of your sleep, if you're not taking care of your body, if you're not moving, if you're not getting exercise, if you're not getting enough light, enough time in nature, all of these things, when you engage in certain practices, will allow you to thrive, allow you to flourish. But if you were sitting in a dark room all day and you were never taking care of some of those things, you're probably going to feel pretty crummy. So the same goes for our emotional health, how we take care of our feelings, our big feelings, our little feelings, the hard feelings, the easy feelings, the happy feelings, the sad feelings is really important because that directly correlates to how you experience your life and how hard life is or how not so hard life is at times. Our mental health, our mental mindset, rather, I should say. So mental is really more to focus on your mindset. So how you think about the world and how you talk to yourself and how you talk to others and how you perceive hard times. If you take a victim mentality versus a mentality of I will persevere and overcome and there's always something to learn. So our mindset is really important as well when it comes to our ability to thrive. Our spiritual belief system, also very important. And I'm not saying that you have to be religious, but we all need some way to make meaning of the bad shit that happens in this world. If we don't have some way to make meaning of that, or to make sense of things that are just completely confusing and overwhelming, we're going to get stuck there. So, having a spiritual belief system is not one and the same as having a religious practice. You can be spiritual and not religious. And in fact, there's some research that I've read recently that indicates that you might have a religious practice, but you actually aren't very spiritual. So, just know that those aren't one and the same, although they tend to get lumped together. So, how you make meaning, how you find a greater purpose in life is really an important part of the whole ingredient and recipe as well. And last but not least is our relational domain. So, the relationships we keep, the people we have around us, how much goodness they contribute to our life, or how much distress and chronic, overwhelm and discomfort they add to our lives, also directly correlates to our ability to thrive. So let's dive into the Thrive 5 a bit more thoroughly, and I'll share some of my go-to techniques just to give you some examples. And as we go through the Thrive 5, I just really encourage you to think about how you engage in these domains in your life on a regular basis, because these aspects of your lived experience are always present. But how you engage with them, what they look like, how much they contribute to your health and wellness versus how much they are subtracting from your health and wellness, how much these domains may be contributing to feeling stuck and at a loss and overwhelmed and just shut down in despair. We have to think about how we intentionally show up with these domains, because this is where we have a lot of control and influence over our life. You are not in control of the things that happen in your life. Most of them you are not. You are not in control of the adversity that you face, stress, crises, climate disasters, climate change, political unrest, racism, prejudice, capitalism, patriarchy. All of those things are largely out of your control. And so you're going to interact with these common points of discomfort and hardship that human beings just kind of regularly interact with as part of living. But how you live your life is more impactful, is more powerful than the effect that those external, uncontrollable forces have on you. And so this is where the Thrive 5 comes in. It's about finding a way to take your power back and to change how your neurobiology is responding to the events happening around you. The Thrive 5 is a framework to being able to start to respond to life rather than react to it. By engaging in enough health habits, wellness habits, I should say, that have a diverse range of qualities and values and functions, that collectively you have the resources and the nutrients that you need to grow. So let's start with the physical domain. And by the way, the way I just read these, and I'm going to go through these, is not like this one must happen before this one must happen before this one. They're all really important. So this isn't like a hierarchy that I'm going through. This is just kind of the order that I think of them in my mind. So if we start with the physical domain of health and wellness has a lot of different ways you can engage with it. So if we think about just the basic physical health needs that we all have. So we all need good quality sleep. If you're not getting good sleep, you're probably feeling pretty crummy in your life. Sleep is the pillar of health. It is the most important thing that you do on a daily basis. You are going to fall apart quicker if you don't get sleep than if you didn't eat. That's right. Sleep can mess us up really quick. So getting good quality sleep is of the utmost importance. And while good quality sleep is not going to cure PTSD or depression or a toxic codependent relationship, it can do wonders for giving you the neurobiological resources that you need to get through the hard stuff in life. So good sleep hygiene is the best and easiest thing that you can do for yourself, your ability to thrive on an everyday basis. I know a lot of people out there talk about sleep hygiene, and I'm sure you've heard about sleep hygiene before, and you might be rolling your eyes right now. But if there is one thing that I can say, if everybody could focus on this a little bit more, we as a human race would probably be in a better state. It would be sleep. What you feed your body, the nutrition that you put into your body, whether it's healthy food, unhealthy food, quote unquote, it is all food. It's all food. Just how nutritious it is can significantly vary. A bag of Cheetos has a certain level of nutritional value versus a carrot. So you need to think about what kind of resources you're feeding your body so that your body can do the things that you're asking it to do. We also need to stay hydrated. Staying hydrated, really important. You are made up of mostly water. The fluid that surrounds your brain, that your skull sits in, is water. So staying hydrated isn't just about keeping your skin looking shiny and bright. Staying hydrated is a way to make sure that your neurobiology has some of the resources it needs so it can just send electrical neurotransmitters throughout your body effectively. It supports our hormone health. It supports our respiratory system. It supports our digestive system, our immune system, our endocrine system. So staying hydrated is so, so very important. Some of my favorite physical health techniques that I practice on a daily basis certainly include these three things that I've talked to you about first and foremost. So I start every day by drinking an 8-ounce glass of water, but I mix electrolytes into it. So when you wake up in the morning, you tend to be dehydrated. And if the first thing you go to within about the first 60 to 90 minutes that you wake up is caffeine, is coffee or caffeinated tea, it can influence your cortisol levels. It can actually change how your neurobiology is going to function for the rest of the day. So I start my day off with an 8-ounce glass of water. I mix some electrolytes in there. I drink that first. And then I'll go to, usually then I have a probiotic drink that I drink next. And then I'll get to my cup of tea, usually about an hour after I wake up. So that is one way you can support your hydration. I also drink electrolytes after I work out. I work out almost every day. I stretch every day. I might go for a walk, but I typically get to the gym almost every day. Getting to the gym almost every day is also really important for my emotional health. I find it also helps support my domains of emotional wellness, and actually it also helps to support my domain of relational wellness. So let me talk about what going to the gym does for me. I really got into weightlifting a couple of years ago when I was diagnosed with arthritis in both of my feet. Before that time, you could have found me in the yoga studio almost every day or on my yoga mat in my home yoga studio almost every day. I used to be a really avid asana yogi. I would practice pretty robust and quick movements and really challenge myself in my physical practice with yoga. But when you have arthritis in both of your feet, practicing that way isn't really possible. It actually hurts a whole lot. I knew that I needed some kind of physical activity to take care of my mind and my emotional wellness because my yoga mat was not just about physical exercise, but it was also a place that I kind of got into this meditative flow. I was just focused on my breath. I was just listening to music that made me feel really good. And I just really, it was a place that I could work stuff out. And I'd leave my mat after practicing yoga for an hour or so, and I would just feel mentally clear. I would feel emotionally regulated. I'd feel physically just amazing. So yoga did a lot for me. And I knew that I needed to find some way for my brain and body to still get that dump of endorphins that I was getting on my yoga mat, but in a way that didn't leave me kind of limping around because my feet hurt so much. So cue the gym and cue weightlifting. I started working with a trainer to learn how to lift weights because, I kind of knew how to lift weights. I'm a pretty active person. It's not like it was the first time I ever set foot in a gym, but I was setting foot in the gym in a different way with the intention of I really want to learn how to lift weights. And I want to learn how to lift weights to just support my hormone health and to support my body and to prevent, any kind of decline or disease. And so, working with a trainer, I really learned how to lift weights and I really got into lifting weights. And today I love lifting weights. Oh, it feels so good. I can get into that meditative state when I lift weights. I'm really focused on my body, on my breath, on my form, on just the moment. I'm right there in that moment. I'm usually playing some really good tunes that make me feel really good, that make me feel empowered. And I'll tell you, as my body has gotten stronger and stronger over the last 2 years, I've really been lifting weights. I kind of find it to be a way that I am constantly amazing myself by being surprised at how strong I am. So it does a lot for my mental mindset as well. It additionally is a social outlet for me because I work from home and my coworkers are my husband and 4 fur babies. I don't get to see people throughout the day. So going to the gym, I see familiar faces. I have conversations with people there. I know people's names. It's how I've met some of my neighbors that I didn't know before, and I probably wouldn't have known their names if it wasn't for the gym. So it becomes a really important component of my relational domain of the Thrive Five as well. So, those are some of my tips and techniques for physical health and wellness. We will talk about so many more on this podcast, but now let's move on over to emotional health and emotional wellness. So, how we take care of our emotions and our feelings is really important. We live in a society that stigmatizes feelings and makes us think that they're just fluff and they're made up constructs and they mean that we're weak and that we need to just like stuff those down and just get over it. The reality is that feelings are the outcome of actual neurobiological processes happening within your body. So if you wouldn't tell somebody who's having an asthma attack to just get over it, you shouldn't tell yourself or anyone else to get over their feelings of anxiety, because anxiety is simply a label that we put on a collection of internal feelings, sensations, body sensations that collectively say all of this is anxiety. So when we feel anxious, we're naming certain feeling states we are experiencing in our body. Maybe we feel our heart rate is beating fast, our breath feels shallow and short, maybe our stomach's doing something weird, our mind may be racing, maybe we're ruminating on something, maybe we're disaster planning something. We feel a lot of muscle tension, we feel irritable, and all of that stuff mixed together, we say this is anxiety. And so while in society we say that's anxiety, that means something's wrong with you, or like you need to just get over it, or just do some deep breathing, recognize that all feelings are the outcome of neurobiological things happening in the body. So if we can learn how to work with our feelings in a different way, we're actually learning to work with our neurobiology. We're learning to work with our nervous system rather than against it. We're learning to use tools and techniques that allow our nervous system to thrive and be its best self. So, one of my tips when I'm feeling a really intense emotion, when I'm feeling really overwhelmed, or I'm feeling really scared, or I'm feeling anxious, or I feel really sad, I feel really alone, maybe, I try and just start by naming that emotion and just saying what it is. I feel scared. I feel scared. And I will just repeat that over and over and over in my mind. Doing so allows me to separate from it just a little bit. Instead of being caught up in it, I am now moving to this state in which I am observing my emotional experience. And I'm naming what I'm experiencing. I'm just stating the truth. I feel scared. I feel overwhelmed. I feel panicked, whatever that may be. I'm just stating the facts. I'm not judging it. I feel afraid, and that means that I suck. I feel scared, and that means I'm a wuss. I'm not adding any kind of value to it. I'm simply stating the facts. And when I state that over and over in my mind again, it keeps me focused on the feeling, which at first may feel even more overwhelming. Like, Rebecca, I don't like this feeling. I don't want to think about it anymore. I don't want to feel it anymore. But what you notice when you focus on it is that it probably changes pretty quick. Our feelings can get bigger when we avoid them because they're kind of like toddlers that just need to be seen and heard. But if you just give them a bit of attention and you watch them, you track them, you will find that they usually change, even slightly. It might change to a different feeling. It might get more, it might get less, but it's like this living, breathing organism inside of you that you're experiencing. It's just your neurobiology, and your neurobiology is constantly changing. So if you just give yourself permission to rest your awareness on it, you will probably become aware that the feeling changes pretty quick. So that's one of my tips for working with your emotional wellness. We'll talk about many more throughout this podcast, but how you take care of your emotional health directly correlates to how much capacity you have to thrive in your life. You're not going to thrive by stuffing that shit down, telling yourself to get over it, and that feelings are stupid and for wusses. Like, that is just not going to get you there. Next on the Thrive 5 is mental. So this is mindset. Your mind is so powerful and capable. And think about it. Some people say we only use less than 10% of it. If that's true, I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm sure you've heard that statement before. We still know very little about the brain. There is so much yet to be discovered. But this incredibly powerful organ has put us on the moon, is able to solve complex math problems, can launch the James Webb telescope and get deep space images, can learn to drive, can build a home, can dream of amazing things in the future. This brain can also think of the worst case scenario, replay your worst nightmare out over and over and over in your mind, remind you of how stupid it was, that thing that you did in 5th grade that one time that was so humiliating, and make up really interesting, peculiar stories and narratives about things. So where you point your brain is really important, because that thing is really powerful. So what you say to yourself is a great place to start by exploring what your mindset looks like. If I were to step into your head and listen to the conversations you have with yourself all day, how would you describe the quality of those conversations? Whether that's towards yourself, so that is the things that you say to yourself. Are you constantly putting yourself down, calling yourself names, just being really mean to yourself? How are you thinking about other people? Are you judging people? Are you getting really gossipy in your mind? Are you being mean and callous? So the quality of your mental state is going to directly correlate to the quality of your external life. So I encourage you to start to think about examining the quality of the conversations you have with yourself, and what kind of words would you use to describe those conversations? Are they kind? Are they curious? They don't have to be perfect. Your mind is going to go some interesting places. My mind is absolutely pretty hard on me and mean to me sometimes, but because I've developed this part of me that knows how to listen and watch it, I can catch it when it's happening. I can say, whoa, that's not necessary. Let's not beat yourself up. And I can cue another part of me that knows how to be a little bit kinder to myself. But you have to first develop just the awareness of what your internal conversations look like. So I encourage you to start to think about that this week and pay attention to the things you're saying to yourself and about other people. Next up is spiritual. So our spiritual practices, as I mentioned earlier in this podcast, are really important for our ability to adapt and make meaning of the hard stuff that happens in this lifetime. If we don't have any spiritual belief systems, if we don't have faith in anything, if we don't have a way to make sense of things, if we don't have a higher power, we are absolutely going to, for sure, get stuck in a state of despair and just feeling like there is absolutely no hope out there. I really gravitate towards a spiritual philosophical perspective that embodies Buddhism and yoga-based philosophy. And I have to tell you that when life gets really hard, when I feel like there's no hope, that we're all going to hell in a handbasket, that the end is near, most certainly, and everybody's terrible and nobody can be trusted, I go back to my spiritual belief system. And it's sobering for me. It gets me grounded again. It gives me the ability to get back up the next day. And you know what it often does? It often shifts my perspective to one that I feel is actually more true than the perspective I had before. Maybe we all are going to hell in a handbasket and the end is near and we're all about to explode into pieces. But that doesn't mean that every single person is terrible and everything is bad and that there is no beauty around. We can be going to hell in a handbasket and the birds are still singing. So, a spiritual belief system helps me to make sense of pain. It helps me to make sense of adversity. It helps me to make sense of just the human condition to be mean and unkind and greedy and jealous and petty. And it helps me to recognize that there is more in life, and it keeps me from getting distracted on things that are just going to keep me small. So I encourage you to think about, what does your spiritual belief system look like? Whether you believe in God or a higher power or the universe or the cosmic force or Mother Nature, or just you believe in love, you believe in possibility, whatever that is, what do you believe in? And how much do you come back to that home base when things get hard? Is this an area of your life that is needing some love and needing you to spend some time and get a little bit more curious there? Maybe it's time to go pick up some books. Maybe it's time to enroll in a class. Just get curious and find whatever it is that becomes your North Star, that keeps you facing forward, that gives you the strength and capacity to get back up again tomorrow and face another day. Because if you don't have that, getting through the hard shit that is absolutely going to happen in the future, because life is still happening, is just going to be that much more difficult. Last but not least, we have the relational domain. Human beings are hardwired to connect. We thrive in relationships, and relationships can be the best thing for us, or they can be the worst thing for us, depending on the quality of that relationship, how toxic it is, how much conflict we have with that person, how safe we are with that person, how safe we are for that person. All of that goes into the quality of our relationships. Human beings are hardwired to connect. We are born to be social creatures. This is how we form attachments. If we weren't hardwired to connect, it would be very easy to just abandon our young when they get really difficult and to never want to date again after we got our heart broken that first time. I was a very difficult teenager, y'all. I was a super wild child. I look back and cringe a little bit at some of the things I did and just thank my stars that I'm still here. And I really wore my mom out. And when I was a young adult in my 20s and had enough hindsight to be like, woo, I was really hard. I told my mom, I apologized to her. I said, Mom, I'm really sorry. I was such a tough kid. And she said, yeah, when you became a teenager, I suddenly understood why some animals eat their young. So if it wasn't for our ability to connect and form bonds with each other and love each other, we might eat our young out of malice and spite. Or at least just abandon each other when our kids turn into teenagers, right? So anyway, that is the power of our capacity to form social bonds and connect. It is just part of who we are. It's part of our neurobiology. And so relationships can be very medicinal for us. Just think of what it's like to feel heard, to feel seen by somebody, and how priceless that feels, or how visceral the experience is when you have conflict with someone that is like one of your most important people. Like, it's so hard to get anything done or focus when one of your primary relationships is tense and just unstable, right? Oh, it's hard. So this speaks to the power of our relationships. So the quality of the relationships around you takes a self inventory and really ask yourself, are these people contributing to my capacity to thrive, or are they actively part of the problem? Now, there are some people in our lives that we can't, just kick out because they're family members or what have you. And we can't just say, toodaloo, you suck. And so we have to think about how to create some boundaries around those individuals. But if you can look at how you increase the people in your life who don't challenge you in that way, who you get to choose whether or not to be friends with, who you get to choose how much of your time they get, increase those relationships, focus on those relationships, connect with those people more, and set boundaries with those folks that are just kind of sucking you dry, or say toodaloo if you can, if you can. It is so easy in this world to lose connection with each other because we just do everything over text messages or emails. And before you know it, we haven't even sent each other a text message in like 10 years. And we used to be BFFs, and there's no reason that we shouldn't be BFFs anymore. So not only is it important to think about who is in your life, but it's also really important to think about how you are engaging with them. It can be really easy to lose track of time and to let some of our relationships go. And relationships need active, constant tending to. They're kind of like plants that we always have to nurture if we want them to grow or just sustain. So think about someone in your life who means a lot to you, who does contribute to your health and wellness and your ability to thrive. Someone who maybe you haven't said hi to for a while that you need to reach out to, and maybe shoot them a text or pick up the phone or send a kind email. But nurture those relationships so they can nurture you. At the end of this podcast, I invite you to think about the Thrive Five, how you engage with these 5 domains on a daily basis, and how your engagement with these domains and habits within each domain contributes to your ability to thrive. When you focus on the Thrive Five, you can bring in more positive habits that are going to affect positive change for your life. But if you neglect the Thrive Five, and if you don't engage in habits that are supporting your health and wellness throughout these 5 domains, life is just going to kind of suck and you're going to stay stuck in survival mode. You might even start to make a list of the Thrive Five and skills, habits, techniques, coping strategies, just daily behaviors that you engage in on a daily basis that allow you to live your best life. Thanks for tuning in again to Thrive the Podcast. I'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Thrive the Podcast. I hope these insights inspire positive changes in your life. If you're ready to take the next step in your Thrive journey, check out goodies linked in the show notes and on my website, RebeccaCase.com. Sign up for my newsletter and get access to helpful resources, connect with my community, and be the first to know about events and happenings. Remember, your journey from surviving to thriving is unique, and you have the power to create your best life. Subscribe, share, and thrive into your potential. Until next time, this is Rebecca Case, signing off. Thrive on.